WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts. Along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episode. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to our Uncommon Place.
Howdy, everybody, and to the video watchers that will be watching this, good morning, good afternoon, good night to you, wherever you come from. And I am back with an interesting guest that is going to help us with this arc of the death of cinema. But his story and who he is a important calling before we even get into the topic of the death of cinema. So, without further ado, let me bring on Anky Cyriaque, correct?
Yes, Anky Cyriaque.
Cyriaque. Now, your humble beginnings started in Haiti, and you made your way to New York at the age of 7, correct?
Yes.
And how did these things shape your identity and your creative voice in the arts before you became a producer?
Well, when I first came to this country, it was a huge culture shock. I grew up in Haiti for a little time that I was able to. I grew up in the countryside, so more like a farm boy, to be honest. So
Okay.
when I came to this country, I didn't know how to speak English. So the only thing that I was able to do, and I was too young to go outside and play with other people, because my mom was very strict with us. So I watched television. I literally grew up watching TV. I learned how to speak English through watching TV, from Sesame Street to This Is the Story That Never Ends. I normally would spend like 36 hours watching TV, learning how to speak.
Mm-hmm. So you learn, okay, and I get that. Now, you have a mantra that I want to talk about before we get anywhere. Story is king. What does that mantra mean to you as a director and as a storyteller?
I mean, the story is the foundation of everything. Even when something happens in our lives, we're basically storytellers, all of us. Everybody's a storyteller. And if the story, no matter if you're watching a foreign film or you're watching a silent film, if the story is there, you're going to be engaged. You're going to go into the story. That's why a lot of people, when they tell you a story, they kind of make it, they exaggerate it so that they can pull you into the story. So if the story is not there, then you don't really have anything.
Okay, so basically, don't make your story like a pie, because if you make a pie, you're gonna put a lot of filler in there, and eventually, when someone gets a piece, if it's not good content in that instance, then they're not gonna eat it. But in the movie realm, or in any type of form of content creation, if the story's not good, it's just not gonna work, and you can detect that. Now, going back a second, you talked about learning English from TVs and movies. And I was very happy to hear Sesame Street. When you said that, that made me realize that you were part of one of the greatest machines like I was, because I'm 40, which was PBS.
Right.
And PBS was very influential. And I think the only thing that I ever got from actual paid TV or cable was Babar and the Frog and Toad. So I thank you for that one. But was it something specifically on I said The Simpsons, I meant the Sesame Street, that resonated with you in learning English? Like, what on Sesame Street encouraged you to learn English?
Well, I had to learn English because when I came to this country, my parents, by law, you have to go to school. So I needed to be able to interact with certain kids, and watching how Big Bird and Cookie Monster, how they all interact. So it was a lot of the sounding, the music, and because learning through music is easy and important. If you want to teach someone something, just give them a beat, give them a hum. That's why kids nowadays can recite lyrics before they recite a history book. They can recite their favorite song before they can tell you what happened during the Roman Empire. you know?
Yes, sir.
So Sesame Street was it was very colorful. It was very bright. So it kept my attention. I'm a visual learner. So anything that catches my eye or catches my attention, I'm focused on it. And that was the one thing that kind of stood out to me and it was just friendly. It just showed like, and it was at a good pace that I was able to catch on to it. And it had stories, Bert and Ernie had their story. The Count had his story. Everything had many stories in it. It was
Okay.
like a little anthology.
Now, after that, you go to school, you get immersed in the English language. You still keep your heritage from Haiti. And what drove you to want to get involved in filmmaking, in that creative realm?
The Goonies.
What?
I went to
My
see
man right there.
I went to see the Goonies, and it was the first film that I actually, I actually went to see in a movie theater because my school had a class trip, and I begged my mom. My mom would never let me go anywhere, but I begged her. I was like, "Mom, I want to go. I want to go. I want to go." And she finally signed a permission slip, and she was like, "It was like the Goonies, right?" So I went to see the movie, and the story was about kids overcoming and fighting and being champions and being different. And the story resonated with me until this day. And that's why, like, even when I didn't know how to read credits, so when I first saw it, it was like Steven Spielberg. So I was hooked on that. So I became a very big Steven Spielberg fan. But then years later, I found out that he didn't direct it; he produced it. So that was another thing for me. But The Goonies was the one film that kind of made me want to get into telling stories, putting it on the big screen, and having a diverse cast.
Okay. Now let me ask you one thing because this ties into the major topic at hand. Was it something about that experience, like going to see it? Did you have popcorn? What was a memory that when you sat down in that seat and you were watching it on that big screen, what did that bring to you?
I felt the emotions that the characters were going through. The screen was so big, the surround sound, the buttered popcorn, I can still smell it. It's one of those things. Like, if I'm a 90-year-old man and ask me what was the biggest time, I remember seeing the Goonies for the first time, and it came out in theaters. So it wasn't, and there was no social media. There was no, there wasn't like if you wanted to know about the movie, you would have to read, the New Yorker to get the. So no one was spoiling anything for us. There was no opinion in it. I wasn't bombarded with 3,000 opinions on how this movie was and this person's opinion on the movie. It was just the movie and
Right. And, and,
completely dark. Everybody was quiet. Everybody was focused.
and the driving force behind it is the stories that you tell today were the stories you told after the movie.
Yes.
That's one thing that I hate about this generation. Like, we don't have a surprise factor. And growing up, once you were an adult, word of mouth on a movie before the internet and all that CompuServe and all that stuff, word of mouth made a movie that much better when your uncle, cousin, aunt, whoever could say, "Hey, you should go see this, blah 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 blah." Then you go see it and you can agree. Now, if you
Right.
disagree with them, you never told them because you didn't want no problems. But then you
That,
knew. But then you knew for the rest of your life, man, I can't trust them.
right. You knew who was the good critics and who was the bad critics.
Right, and that's one thing I think we'll miss in this day and age. Now, back to you. You've
Mhm.
had a very nice, illustrious career. You directed some music videos. You worked with a nice company,
Mhm.
Jive Records. I want to give you a shout out on that. So what was it like directing music videos? Like, what was it like the vision? I don't care necessarily about the artist because we can talk about that for days because you got an IDMB that's worth $1 million or more. But what what was it like taking the direction of a music video?
Well, not to bash the music industry now, because everybody gets the chance to, but some of the music back in the days was visual. They kind of told a story, so a lot of the music videos had a storyline. And some of the ones that I worked on were based off movies. So they were like the the original song for the movie. So, like I did something with Idlewild with the Outcast, and that was like pretty based off the movie.
Whoa.
So it was very visual, and it wasn't every video was a different idea, a different aspect, and people were being more creative because there was a more lane to be creative. It was more like let's be creative, and nowadays, respect to all the directors out, music video directors out there, but sometimes I feel like they play it a little safe. So they give you a basic template of certain things, and back in the days, the storylines were like really, really, really dope. Some of the
Okay.
music, some of the music had real good visuals. Like once you hear it, you can zone in and kind of visualize it.
Okay. Now you made some short films, A Cat in Heat, Love, and I Had a Fight. They received a lot of recognition. What inspired these stories, and what made you go with a a short film format?
Well, every director, you're basically for your resume, a short film is your resume. It's a personal investment in yourself, and your friends and your family invest, because it doesn't really take a lot to shoot a short film. If you're going high end, it's like $50,000, but you can shoot it in any aspect you want. And you have to be able to. When I went to film school, you have to be able to tell the story in a short period of time. It's just a skill that they teach you how to. So you don't go past, and you don't do a lot of fluff. You just kind of like you have a certain amount of minutes to tell the story. And if your audience doesn't get the story within a certain amount of time, then you kind of failed. So it's every director's calling card. Every great director started off doing short films.
Okay, okay. Now, and you work with somebody that, like I said, we're always impressed with anybody you work with, but you worked with Stephen A. Smith on a documentary, The Miseducation of Success. And the one reason why I like that thing about that is because, Stephen A. Smith is a big personality
Yes,
right
he's.
now. And, I feel like he's going to go the way of, oh my gosh, what was the guy's name from ESPN? He passed away. I forgot his name.
Oh, I know what he's talking about.
You know who I'm talking about, right?
I don't remember his name though.
But you remember, like, he was big. He was our Stephen A. Smith back then.
Right.
He was like boom, and he always made all the noise, like boom shakalaka and all that.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So doing that, how was it like working with him? Is he really the personality he portrays on TV or not?
Yes, he's very knowledgeable. This man knows everything he needs to know about his industry, about sports, and and he's a talker. He can talk. I have about 5 hours, 5 to 6 hours worth of interview footage
Whoa.
in Stephen A. Smith. Yes, I was fortunate enough to be working with his sister, Dr. Lockett, and she introduced us. And he does a lot of outreach programs for up and coming Black journalists and up and coming kids who want to get into the sports world. And he came to speak at the school that we were shooting at, and then I was able to meet him. And then me and my business partner, Neosha Davis, we coordinated and we sat down with him, and we got a chance to interview him for a documentary about success. From what is the meaning of success for athletes, African American athletes.
Okay, I like that. Giving a bar, how to measure it and how you do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell me about the lineup.
The lineup is it was a very long journey, and it kind of gave me a great education, a crash course in television and how the whole business works. And it was a great experience, expensive but great experience. But the storyline was basically during the dating app era, where people used to meet people on dating apps, and the meetups never went correct. Sometimes it would go left. Sometimes it was tragic. Sometimes things just didn't pan out the way it was supposed to. So, I met a friend of mine who she used to be the ones that used to lure people to those datings, to those locations, and she would tell me crazy stories about things that happened and people getting out of it. So, I was able to sit down one day and just started writing, and then I hooked up with a good colleague of mine. His name was Damian McKnight, and then he ended up writing the pilot episode for me. And then after that, it picked up some steam. We were in talks with Tidal to get it to be Tidal's first original, programming, when everyone was running to get original programming. And then we ended up hiring another writer by the name of Calvin Apple. He came in, he tightened up the script. We shot a couple of pilots, and we eventually didn't succeed in our goals, but we ended up landing a distribution deal with Tubi, so we converted it into a film. So now it's on Tubi.
Right. And I thank you for doing that. And then the one thing that I like there, and this is for any content creator that's up and coming, you didn't let one thing turn into a failure. You took a no and turned it into new opportunity. And in doing so, that's something that gives you a strong versatility, and it makes you impressionable to people. So I want you to definitely keep that and always spread that around to people, because that little bit you put there is a gem inside this episode if you didn't notice. Now, your debut feature, Seasons. Now, give me a glimpse of it and tell me how we're going to find this in the world later. Or y'all are not to distribution yet, are you?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed on the distribution. Right now A24 is like the biggest company out. They're pumping out some magical stuff. I'm a big fan of Apple. I currently have a short film on Apple, so that's why, and they treat me very well. So I'm a big fan of Apple. So
let's do a little shameless plug. Let's get the name of that Apple film.
Love and I Had a Fight.
Love and I Had a Fight. Okay, so that's over there. Okay.
So Seasons, I've been writing it for my entire life. I've been writing it for like 20 years now, and then after that, I partnered up with another gentleman by the name of another writer, the same writer, Calvin Apple. Shout out to Calvin, and he was a script doctor, and he kind of helped me, fill the holes where it was missing. And then me and my other business partner, Cordero St. Clair, we decided to go to Japan. And we jumped on a plane and went to Japan. And Japan showed us so much love. And we started working, and we started pre-production, and we started casting out there. And we were able to secure some great talent from Japan. And then we came back to the States, and now we're almost 75% casted. And hopefully we should start pre-production within the next couple of months.
Oh snap! So this is that big time. This is that debut that's going to be there and put you where you want to be, right?
Yeah,
because you are somewhere, but just being able to do this, that's the fruition of your dream, right?
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal is to win an Oscar. To be honest,
okay,
that's the
an
ultimate.
Oscar.
Yeah,
that's different.
Definitely I want to win an Oscar, and
Okay.
Best original screenplay, best picture, best director. I definitely want to sweep that Oscar year that I get nominated, but it's I still need to make sure that it's a good story, because at the end of the day, my name's going to be attached to it, and I have a lot of people who are well invested in this, and I can't let them down.
And you've got to make your heritage proud too, because you're doing something that you came here, you're Haitian American, so you're carving a legacy, and you're putting something in the film industry that's going to make sense for you, your people, our people, because we're all the same people,
Right.
and it's going to move there. Now, I brought you on because I have to talk to you about a certain situation that I've noticed going on, and me and you probably notice this too, because you're deep in it. You're in the film distribution, and you sold this thing happened in 2019. At the very end of 2019, streaming services. I think because I want to always say it was in the summer of 2019. Wasn't that the announcement of HBO and Cinemax becoming one streaming service, like one group?
Yeah.
When HBO Max was originally announced, we knew, and I mean, Hulu and Netflix were doing things, but when HBO and Cinemax joined together, it was a chapter of our lives closing.
Yes.
Because that took away a lot of independent production money and put it in one house.
Right.
Because you could do a film with Cinemax back in the day, or you could do one on HBO. You could get distribution from them, and production houses were underneath them. And then they put it all under one roof, which was real messy. And that's when I realized that this was before COVID, that something was happening and our world was shifting. Did you notice that at the end of 2019, or did it happen to you in the pandemic?
It kind of happened during the pandemic because everything that we were working on was temporarily postponed. And then as we got middle of the pandemic, then everything was completely like at a halt. We got to the point where me and some of my team members made a decision like, okay, you know what? There's nothing happening in the US. We're all going to the UK. So we all flew out and stayed in the United Kingdom for about a good year and a half. And there was work out there because a lot of the productions, because the COVID restrictions wasn't as strict as it was out here. So if you weren't backed by streaming, you didn't have enough money to do all the COVID mandates, all the COVID testings and all that stuff. So a lot of the production budgets skyrocketed because of the pandemic. So a lot of the independent people got crushed and kind of that.
And one other topic that I always talk to people about when we start talking about the death of cinema, and I brought up HBO Max because they were the first company to do this. They released Mortal Kombat and King Kong in theaters and on streaming service at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Which me and you both know that was the turning point of streaming services, because I will be 100% honest with you. A lot of people like me have HBO Max because I'm an AT&T customer, and I'm still grandfathered in. I've never paid for it.
Right. Oh, wow.
I mean, obviously, where it's attached to my bill, I'm paying something somewhere. But
right.
I never. But the way they make me feel, I don't feel like I'm paying for it. So
Right.
all through the pandemic, I never paid for the service, and these movies came out. And for the first time in my life, and I told you how I watch a movie, I use a projector.
Right.
I don't believe in TVs, but still, with me doing that and having that access in my home, I wasn't breaking any copyright laws by having 10 or 12 people in my house watching it.
No.
Yeah, and see, that was what was crazy there. That's a new fine line there, but that'll be a whole nother episode. I might have to have you back on about that one, or we can talk behind the scenes about that. But so for me, with COVID restrictions and everything, I had left West Virginia, and I ended up, me and my wife got stuck in Ohio because we couldn't, with my job, you couldn't go back and forth to different states. So these two movies came out, and they're always significant, and I don't know why it sticks out with me, but it's just a history. When both those movies came out, those movies did moderately good because Mortal Kombat's getting a sequel. But the way that they did King Kong when his movie came out, it did good, but it didn't do great. But in that instance, I seen a shift because you couldn't go to the theater. And if you went to a theater, which I did go to one during COVID, it was not a great experience because there were so many limitations, and you literally had to pick your seat. And if you didn't sit there, those people would escort you out of AMC, Regal, any of these top tier places. Now, the mom and pop theaters, nah, they were kind of cool. They didn't really care, but they had to sanitize everything. So the movie going experience disappeared for us for almost 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was something where you kind of just didn't. It was too close to people.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it during that shift? Was it right? Was that the thing that like moved you into looking at film distribution through streaming services a little bit more? What happened to you during that time when it came to where you want your film to go or what you're doing?
Well, during that time, what was funny, right? Steven Soderbergh, years before when Blockbuster was still around,
Yes.
right? He came up with the same proposal where the film can come to distribution, can go to theaters, but instead of streaming, you can rent it on DVD or VHS at that time, right? And he had gotten so much backlash for that, right? And then the Academy stepped in and said, if any movie was released in that platform, they would not be qualified for an Oscar. So that was killed. Then years later, when HBO did it, they were partnered up with the Academy. So the Academy approved of it because they went to them and was like, the audience is home. Nobody's going anywhere. So instead of losing money, we could bring the movie to them, and those that trickled past the net, we can catch them in the theaters, right? Because there's some diehard movie goers, and they're gonna go see it in the theaters regardless, COVID or no COVID, end of the world or not. So to me, it was like, if you want your movie to be seen, everyone's on the computer right now. That's when Zoom started coming in about. They were doing Zoom parties. People wasn't even leaving their house, and they were able to. There was like these websites that started promoting where you can log in and everybody could watch a movie together.
Yep.
So business, as being creative is cool, but at the end of the day, this is the business. This is how we pay our bills, we take care of our family. So we had to pivot with the industry and do what we had to do. It's the same thing as making a movie. If we pick a location and we're shooting the scene and the location does not work for the scene, we can't stop the scene. We can't stop production. We have to figure out something around it, whether we're shooting outside the location, on top of the location, under the location. So to me, going to Tubi, talking to Apple and setting all that up, I kind of saw it coming when you said it. And luckily for me, it kicked in during the pandemic. So I was able to get my film to an audience while they were still at home. So it's only now that for seasons, I'm pushing for a theatrical release, because a theatrical release would definitely help us qualify for an Oscars run much faster. It'll be a stronger, but you have to get with the times. I'm a film snob, but at the end of the day, business-wise, if you stay the same model, it's going to get left behind.
Right. And then the next thing that I noticed, we'll go after the pandemic, the cost. I know we have a standard of living. I know inflation has come about, but me and you both know that there was a time that you could go to a movie theater and $40 at Regal 10 years ago got you and somebody in there and got them one popcorn.
Yes.
For my wife and myself, because we do a movie review podcast also, we cover a lot of different things, and I won't sit here and act like that it's not expensive. We went to go see some AAA movies. We went to see some Disney stuff and different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we go, like, we have one of the oldest movie theaters in the country here, the Roby Theater in West Virginia.
Okay.
Going there, it's a cheap experience because, hey, it's the third or fourth longest running theater in the United States. So a ticket's $9. When I go to Columbus, Ohio, right, and I go to AMC, Regal, or even when I'm in Florida and I go to one of those IMAX theaters or whatever I'm going to.
Right.
Yes, I'm paying for more aesthetics and different sound and different quality of video, and the chairs move and vibrate, and sometimes you're getting fed. But just a standard movie theater with AMC and Regal to go see Moana for four people to get popcorn and not get the complimentary box and all this stuff. And this is in rural Virginia, like Lynchburg, Virginia, near J. Falwell, where I'm from. It cost $120.
Yeah.
Then going to Regal in Jacksonville in this past December, we went to go see that new Lord of the Rings cartoon that came out, right?
Right.
We got the cup, all the little gimmicky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take away the cups and all that stuff, that was still $60 to get the premium seats, and you still had to pick where you were going. So someone like me, I don't mind doing that type of stuff. But like you said, the rise of the streaming services, I went out there and I got involved with a projector company, and they make a high end and a low end. On the low end, you pay $279 for this device that can produce at least 1080. I spend $500. I've got 4K.
Okay.
So you can see why the topic of the death of cinema came up to me, and then I'll go into some other stuff. But the question I have for you is, has the shift to streaming and short form content fundamentally changed the value in storytelling? And if so, can traditional cinema still compete?
Well, right now we're in the golden age of visual storytelling, right?
Yes.
From all the social media platforms that allow you to do reels, which is a form of storytelling, and from the big budget movies, from the Marvel universe to the new DC universe. So we're really in the golden age where we're getting a large sum of good storytelling bad storytelling, mediocre storytelling. We're getting all sorts. But can cinema survive this? No, because this, back to my mantra, to my motto, story is king. And a lot of people feel that if they go to the theaters and they spend 100 or 60 and then they want to have the whole movie theater experience, they want to come out they want to come out saying that this was a great film. They want to come out. I cried when I needed to cry. I jumped up when I jumped up. I went to the movie theaters and I paid the same thing. I did like $60 and I went to see like the end games. And when Captain America picked up that hammer, the entire crowd went crazy, right? And I didn't even think twice about how much I spent. But then I went to see some movies recently, and then I'm like, dang, I paid like $80, right? When you come out the movie theater and you're thinking about the price instead of the story, that's why cinema is in danger.
Right. And then my next thing is, and me and you noticed this too, and I noticed it and we're going to cover Marvel real quick because this is a good one. The release of Black Widow started superhero fatigue.
Right.
That's well documented, and nothing on the superhero movies because I went and spent, remember I went to the Roby Theater, the cheap one. I went to Roby Theater seeing Fantastic Four, got popcorn, 2 drinks, 2 sets of popcorn, and so $36, didn't care. Fantastic Four, that's another story for another day.
Right.
How many times can you really reboot something? But anyway,
Right.
the next thing that I noticed why I thought I knew that the theatrical experience was going to die was this one thing, is the release window. I can honestly go back and with us doing the movie review show, 120 episodes, I see movies that don't do well if they don't make more than half of their what it costs to make that movie, that budget.
Right.
Those movies have a 2-week window now,
Mm.
and they're on video demand. They're not necessarily on streaming services because they usually give them like 2 months to get on streaming services. But a good example would be Megan 2.0.
Mm.
It didn't do what it was supposed to do.
No.
It didn't have that pandemic feel that it did when it released on there and released in theater. We were still happy with that. When it released in theater, it was not even a month later. It was ready on VOD, and it's not on streaming services, I don't think now, but it will be. So, what is your thought on this window now? Like literally, it's like 2 to 3 weeks, and I've seen some movies, not even independent films. I'm talking about the sour films that come from Warner Brothers here and there, and not necessarily Disney because they hold their stuff to a different regard. But a movie that's NBC Universal or Paramount comes out on their platform in 2 weeks or well, in a month. So the consumer, like me, the guy that bought that projector, I know I can just sit at home and wait 3 weeks and save that money. I've already paid for the one subscription. What is your thought on that approach to the movie release window now?
Well, I feel, my opinion on that is, with the it goes back to again the story, but what it is that the studios are scared that they're gonna lose our attention. So if they make something good and we rally behind it, they're like, let's hold their attention and let's bring something out real quick, and then they'll happen. Like the Megan one was great. Love Blumhouse, love everything they're doing, but was it necessary? No, to me, to be honest, no. You know what I'm saying? It was more like a cash grab. Like, okay, we have, so I feel like a lot of the studios, again, this is a business, so a lot of the studios are in the cash grab, and then that's the same reason why it was an uphill battle for me to make something original and get the funding for it because it wasn't a reboot. It's all about this whole safety thing. They feel safe if they can get it out to you as quick as possible. If we didn't catch them in theaters, we'll catch them at home. If we didn't catch them at home, we'll catch them on TikTok. If we didn't catch them on TikTok, we'll get them on Instagram. So it's at the end of the day, it's still a business, and they're just oversaturating the market with so much content, so that regardless wherever you move, they got you. Because at the end of the day, they're still making their money.
Yes.
Even if they put it on the theaters and they put it on VOD, even if I tell people this, right? It doesn't matter whether the film did bad in theaters. I mean, if it lives on VOD and then it goes to streaming and then it goes to regular television, if people still watch that, that's just licensing fees. They still, they still have to. It's still an IP that the studio owns, and all these platforms still have to pay them a price off the IP. If they license it to Netflix, they get a check. If they put it on VOD, they get a check. If they go to the theaters, they get a check. So for them, it's an ingredient. It may be killing. It may be killing the industry, and they know that, but it's still a formula that works because they're still making their profits.
Right.
They're not losing. Like, when they say, "Oh, we lost," they're not losing because the film is here forever. 10 years from now, somebody buys the licensing and reboots it, they make the money back.
Right.
So it's a business.
And then that's the other thing too that I noticed in the death of cinema was something else that we're going to cover later on is the death of physical media. A movie that does well or becomes a cult classic, as long as it's in a still box, people will buy it.
Right.
Something about that still box, because I can tell you it's a movie, Dark Crystal, that I grew up with. I own every variation of it from Laserdisc to this now.
Right.
But it's because they put it in a still box, and I know that with Best Buy 3 years ago saying that they were getting rid of physical media, that took away CDs, DVDs, anything like that, and Blu-ray.
Right.
With Walmart doing any downsizing on that, you have to order movies now. And some people like me and probably like you that are purists, I like to actually own my movie. I don't
Yeah.
want my movie to be controlled by Movies Anywhere or somewhere else, because one day when that service turns off, I lose that movie. I've seen it too many times with video games. That's another question that I would like to get into. How do you feel about the sudden disappearance of physical media? Like growing up, we had everything. We had what was that? It was VHS. That's not what I'm talking about. But before that, was it Betamax? We
Yeah,
had
we had Betamax, then we had DVDs, then we had Blu-ray, then it was HD versus Blu-ray, and Blu-ray won because HD lost.
yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, it doesn't it's for people like us, it's a nostalgia thing to own something, but my son, his generation, they're not into ownership. It's next, 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 next. It's sad because if the power grid goes down and there's nothing left, you can always pop in that DVD or VHS and watch it. But I'm a little scared for his generation, to be honest. But
Right, because to me it feels like when you watch the movies that are not produced by Netflix but what are licensed to them, they decide when and what you watch. And the bigger companies like Paramount, a great example on that is for some reason I don't know what it was specifically inside of the Rugrats. Something happened with that, and the new show that they had, they removed it because of certain stereotypical things. Pulled that off the market, keep the old one on. So the generation that grew up for the last 4 or 5 years with that new version don't have that, and it's not of it, and there's no physical copy of it you can get. I mean, you can do some illegal things to get it, but let's not do that, people, because you can go to jail, and the MPAA does like to grab people nowadays. But yeah, so one thing there, like that's another thing to get me is the ownership there, and then we're gonna go into the MCU because it's the only one I mean, let's just say it's about Disney as a whole. Disney has taken a model that you need to be involved with them everywhere, from podcast to television to movie. And I have seen this across the MCU, not in Indiana Jones, somewhat in Star Wars, but the MCU, for you to truly be dedicated to it, you have to give your life to them. It's like a blood sacrifice. What is your thought on you? Because you know exactly what I mean. Like you have to be formatted in every single thing, and it sometimes it's even down to the cartoon now because they got a new Spider-Man cartoon that ties into something else. Or with the example of like we got Wonder Man coming out very soon. If you didn't follow periodically certain things that went on with the television shows and the end credits from this and that, you're lost. So,
yeah,
what is your thought on having to be in a fully media centric world now when you watch a movie? Have
um,
you,
it all boils down to capitalism. What happens is that Disney's the one company that has you from the time you were born to the time you die, because they control and they own nostalgia, right? They own three of the biggest franchises in world history, right? So for them, if they can connect the dots where they can get you from your grandfather to you to your son, and they can keep you as a customer, they got you. So that's why they're connecting the dots, because you want to introduce your children to what you grew up with, because you feel that it's wholesome. It teach it kind of, the content we consume has a way of leaving an impression on us and how we are. We sometimes we think and act like the superheroes that we admire,
Hmm.
psychologically. So if Disney can control and tie everything together, so your favorite superhero, like I grew up loving Spider-Man, right? So I was a big Peter Parker fan, and I bought the underwears, the bob. Like I was a full Spider-Man fan. My son is a full Spider-Man fan, right? I'm sure his son is going to be a full Spider-Man. But Disney ties everything. Disney ties nostalgia. It ties generations. Like I was a Star Wars fan. They own Star Wars. I was a Marvel fan. They own Marvel. So it's just they own every single IP that I grew up watching, from The Lion King to Beauty and the Beast. I can, not saying that, but I can sing some of the Disney songs. But at the end of the day, it is a business, and a lot of people don't really understand that aspect of it. And I'm gonna make a very weird analogy. It's like the drug dealer, right? They want you to keep coming back, so they're gonna sell you something that's very addictive. And if you are in the business of selling, then they're in the business of if they're in the business of buying, they're in the business of selling. So if they're going to tie everything together, like the Spider-Man that I grew up with is not the Spider-Man that's on TV now.
Right.
They're completely different, but for some strange way they're tied. Like even the third Spider-Man film, right, when all of them came together in the multiverse and stuff like that. That was just for them to get me, my grandfather, and my son in theaters,
Right.
and it worked. You get what I'm saying? So
Right.
they own legacy, they own nostalgia, they pretty much own everything. To be honest with you,
Right. And when they acquired 20th Century Fox's film division, getting The Simpsons and everything like that, that's when they took over the world.
yeah,
Once they
they,
got The Simpsons, it was over with. I was like,
me right. I was like, oh wow, and I grew up watching The Simpsons. I mean, from
right,
episode one to from Simpsons to Robot Chicken, they own everything. To be honest with you,
right. And at some point, one day, when it happens, and me and you will see it in our lifetime, they're going to buy Warner Brothers,
yes, I agree. I
because
agree.
Warner Brothers and their IPs are a whole different story.
But
But
people don't know that Disney doesn't really need to make money off of streaming, because that's not their. The only company that makes money off of streaming is Netflix.
like, right,
Everyone else, streaming is a hobby, because they have other. Apple don't need Apple TV; they have iPhones and laptops.
right.
So
Look, they don't even need filming. They got one of the
right,
highest grossing films this year.
right. So people don't understand that. It's just part is the Disney Plus and buying all these IPs. It's just part of them growing their ecosystem. You know, they're making sure that if they get you from your grandfather to your newborn.
Okay, and I can get that, and I can go with that. Now, do you see movie theaters in the way that we grew up disappearing entirely in the experience of cinema, like collectively, immersively, and ritualistically? Do you see that dying? Because me and you talked about something off script earlier about, and this one thing I do want to bring up because it was a great point. The actual part of, social media dictates every part of a movie now. And me and you both were talking about back in the day, back when we were coming up, if your uncle, aunt, mom, or somebody told you that a movie was good, you went and seen it, and then were a judge of it. If that, and you gave an experience about seeing the Goonies, and you told me about, you had to talk to your mom so you could go do it, but you remembered it vividly. And the smile on your face while you were telling the story, I mean, you smiled on an interview, but the smile that was on your face from that, the smell of the popcorn, you remember the color of it. Are we going to be able to have these experiences in the future? Or do you believe that it's going to have to, like anything, it's going to have to evolve into something that catches the attention of people or the younger audience? Because as older audience, even us are skeptical. Because I'm going to tell you one thing before we get into that. I've noticed in the last 2 months with movies, and especially with Tyler Perry's last movie that came out, I've noticed that on TikTok and places, they do a slow creep up method on you to get you to watch it. Because I don't watch regular TV. I don't own regular TV at all. If they don't have an ad running on one of the streaming services or on Roku or whatever I'm watching, I don't know anything about movies unless it's a IP, like you said. So when something new comes out, I don't know about it. In all honesty, because there's no way to advertise to me unless it's
Right.
through there. So there's no way to get to me, even with certain type of social media. TikTok is the only place you can get to me because when I scroll down it, I see a video of your movie, Love and I Had a Fight. I see that on there. Someone's done made hashtags and made me want to go watch it by that clip. That's how I'm getting advertised to now.
Mm.
Word of mouth from someone else. But I've noticed the studios creep and give people like certain influencers certain footage and different things to put out there. And that's how movies get brought into my house because the wife sits here on TikTok all day long and she sees something and then she sends me the link to it and says, this is what I want to watch. So I got to schedule the time in the evening to go watch it. Has this happened to you? How are movies strategically advertised to you now?
Well, my algorithm shows me nothing but movies.
Okay.
So, unless I'm talking about a pair of shoes, but everything I get is movies. Lately, I've been getting more foreign films. So I've been getting a lot of foreign films and a lot of film festivals because, a lot of the smaller film festivals are about to come up. And then, probably by September, October, I'm going to get the flood of horror films that's coming out.
Yep.
Then it's the Christmas movies. And then right before the Christmas movies, it's everything I'm going to get from emails to Instagram to TikTok is going to be award season in our industry. So this is who's running for best actor. And this is the movie they were in, and so it's gonna be like that. But for your original question, is that the experience of cinema is still going to be relevant as far as unless dating changes, unless we start doing Zoom dates, right? And people won't physically meet up again. Like, hey, let's Zoom date each other. I still believe that the media, that going to the movie theaters is still going to be there, but it is going to be a luxury, and it's only going to be for the wealthy.
I can see that.
I believe the common person may not be able to afford or want to pay the price that you're going to need to pay to go to the movies and have that experience that I had when I was watching the Goonies for the first time. I think it's definitely going to be a luxury.
Okay. And I can run with that because I can agree with that to a certain degree. My personal opinion is with the rise of projectors, because I'm a projector guy.
Right.
I do believe that because a movie projector, no one could ever afford one like a theatrical quality. There are some high end ones that are $5,000 to $10,000, and if someone wastes that kind of money, I better be making a business with it.
Right.
I believe the rise of boutique theaters or something that ties into the movies but is going to be projector related. I think we're going to see a steady rise in that because people are going to be like, hey, I don't want to go to the theaters no more. I can call Swink and get the movie license. Anybody can do that,
Mm.
and they can agree or not agree, but they're going to take your money. Like you said, it's a business. Say Swink's going to take my money regardless.
Right.
You've got independent film places like Kinema, which is KINEMA,
Hmm.
that gives license to independent people. I mean, gives independent, filmmakers. I can license your film and use it at my event. You're going to still get paid for it,
Right.
but I can house it from now on, and I can make the cinema experience. I can go to Hobby Lobby and buy a good popcorn machine now. So I see it as it'll be there. It may be for the wealthy, but there's going to be some type of versatility to bring it back to the common person. But it's not going to be through AMC or Regal.
I feel like it's gonna for me what I'm visualizing that you're telling me right now is that it's gonna be like hip hop on the ground, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you get a little sick. And I feel like it's not going to be the Marvel movies that you guys are gonna be watching. I feel like it's gonna be the more of the independent artists, the independent filmmakers who are putting movies. I see people like you doing these film festivals, like more niche film festivals. And, but the three major giants are just going to find a way to, get
Take
their
that
hands.
away too.
Yeah. Anything that deals with the population's attention is always going to be in their best interest to control it.
And I can agree with that. And on closing, I want to thank you both definitely for coming on the show and helping with this. And um Anky, I will have to have you on again. And I'm sorry if I chopped that up.
No, no, no. Listen, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. So, Anky serial killer. Like I heard it all. So I'm very and to make things worse, I'm bad with names too. So I do not take it offense.
Right.
Yeah. So
I want to thank you for coming on, and please give the audience a shameless plug before we jump off here, where they can meet and greet you across the internet.
well, my social media is my full name. It's my legal name. It's Anky Cyriaque, which is ANKYCYRIAQUE. And that's my heading for everything for Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, anything. And you can look me up. I'm a Black Spielberg.
Okay.
I'm a big Steven Spielberg fan. So, the Goonies really changed my life and really pushed me towards making films. So, I've always,
Okay.
I've always respected his filmography. And I've seen every single thing that he's ever made.
Okay.
His good and his bad.
Even the Twilight Zone movie? Bro, once a year I watch that. As cringy as it is, I try to make it a point to let people know that like not everybody has a great day.
Yeah. No, no, no. I mean, it's sad of that whole situation, but a story's a story.
So true. So on that note, I'm JR and he's Anky, and we are out of here.
Thank you. Thank you. That was great.